Howdy folks, Alex Newman with The New American. We are here at the Red Pill Expo on JEKYLL Island, the scene of the crime, with the man himself, the man who not only exposed the crime, but gave us the formula and the instructions and the information we need to not just solve the crime, but to reverse the effects of that crime. Griffin, who really needs no introduction, is also the founder of the Red Pill University, the chairman of this Red Pill Expo, the man who kind of made all this happen. This is by far the biggest and best that we've ever had here at JEKYLL Island. It's just incredible. Ed, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, well, thank you, Alex. It's my pleasure to be with you, and my pleasure to be here at this great event where so many people have come to stand up without their masks and to show that they're human beings, and you can see the expressions on their faces when they talk. It's quite refreshing to be here.
It really is. It's like being in a oasis of sanity amid this whole sea of craziness. Ed, you wrote the book Creature from JEKYLL Island, and that really took the message about the Federal Reserve mainstream. You've been on Fox News talking about that. You've been on some of the biggest TV shows and radio shows in America, and this has become really a mainstream issue. We had the overwhelming majority of the House of Representatives supporting a bill to audit the Fed. Between you and Ron Paul and Congressman Larry McDonald, whose son was here earlier today, we interviewed him. You guys are the ones who made this happen. You guys are the reason why Americans now recognize what happened to our money and our economy. Give us an update. What's the status? Where are we headed? And what do we need to be doing to get rid of this monstrosity that has hollowed out our economy, smashed our middle class, and really used these levers of power against us?
Well, yeah, there are some facets to that question. Where are we, where we're headed, what do we do about it, and all that kind of thing. I think we could sort of work our way backward on that question. I think most people know that we're in trouble right now. And people are talking about how the economy is being bruised and shattered and broken, and yet we don't see much evidence of it because it takes a little while. There's a lot of momentum to something called an economy, and especially since the Federal Reserve, since that's our topic, which is the part of this picture that these guys can make money out of nothing, which they're doing. So they're just creating money literally like it's printed monopoly money. It's that easy to make, and they're sending everybody their little $1,200 worth. And so the initial effect is sort of dampened by that. Because, oh, well, I guess I'm okay for now. But all these companies have closed. So I guess the majority of the smaller businesses, which are the backbone of America, are either closed or in the process of closing. These people are going to be on welfare, and people that work there. And people even in middle and upper management, some of them may. In our time, very few people have much savings. And even if they had savings, what's going to happen? They're going to go through their savings. So the whole thing is headed to a very bad crisis. We've been saying the word crisis every day for years, but I mean, this is really the thing. This is it coming. And I think by this time next year, everybody will understand what I'm saying. So we start with that. And then how did that come about? Well, it didn't just happen. It's not just a natural force of history as far as I'm concerned. I think there are several factors involved, one of which is it's the natural result of the banking system that we've allowed to happen. When we created the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, we gave the power to the banking fraternity, the banking industry, to create money out of nothing. We gave away the authority of the federal government to create its own money. We gave that to a banking cartel, which we call now the Federal Reserve System. People don't realize it's a cartel, but that's exactly what it is. It's privately owned. It has nothing to do with the federal government. And we gave them not only the ability to create the nation's money, but we took away the limitations on that power so that they could create money out of nothing, literally, unlimited amount. They could use anything to back money, including real estate, which is not too bad if you want to create money with real estate backing it. But now they go into credit cards. There's nothing backing that at all except the promise to pay. And the Federal Reserve has gone berserk. They will use anything. I'm convinced that if they found a chewing gum wrapper on the ground, they pick it up and say, okay, here's a reserve, and we can now create some more money. That's how it works, literally. That's that bad. But most people think, oh, it couldn't be that bad. But it really is, folks. It's that bad. So they're creating money by the trillions today, and so this is going to flood into the economy. And when it finally gets there, and people around the world who have been accepting so much of our money over the decades realize that the dollar is going to lose its purchasing power, they're going to start sending that money back here I mean, the world is flooded with American dollars. A lot of countries have monetary systems which are worse off even than ours, and so they use American dollars to transact their large quantity businesses, transactions. When they start sending all of that money back here, it'll be horrendous. All that'll come back, and we'll understand what inflation really means very, very soon. And so that was done, and I'll put it bluntly, it was done because we created the Federal Reserve System and gave it a free check to do whatever it wants to do with the money supply. So what do we do about that? I mean, we're going to pay huge consequences. There's no way we can go to Congress or any place else on this planet and say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and by tomorrow morning it'll all be fixed. No, I mean, there's going to be hell to pay no matter what. I think the analogy is best that you imagine that somebody who's been a drug addict for 20 or 30 years and they're on their deathbed. I mean, they're sick, they can't think, they can't walk, they can hardly breathe, their heart's pounding. You say, well, all we got to do is give them a little shot of this other morphine or something, and they'll be fine. They've been doing that for years. So will that person be restored to healthy life? Probably not. But if they it's going to be a slow process, and it's going to be painful. That's the point. I don't even like to talk about it because people don't like to hear about it, but you cannot recover from a binge like that. And this is an economic binge that we've been on for many decades. You cannot recover from that without paying a price. And that means there's going to be a lot of pain no matter what. So that's the downside, but the upside is if we can understand the cause of all of this, that it's government manipulation, or in this case, it's the giving away of the government's authority to manipulate and give it to a private banking cartel, and they're doing the manipulation. But nevertheless, we gave away the power to manipulate the economy. They should never have done that. The economy should be based, in my view at least, on voluntary transactions and what we used to call the free market. Remember that? It's still in the textbooks, but they still like to think that it still exists. They say, oh, the free market in America, look how terrible. We're all suffering right now, where the prices are screamingly high. We've got to get rid of the free market system, get rid of capitalism. Lordy, Lord, we got rid of that 40 years ago, 50. That's why we're in the trouble we are. So anyway, all of this is part of the mystery and part of the challenge of this story of the Federal Reserve System. The first step to recovery, and that is where this question leads, is what are we going to do about it? The first step, no matter what analysis you have, and no matter what solution or strategy you have, the first step is the American people have to, en masse, understand a little bit about the money system. As long as they think that the Federal Reserve System is a government agency, and as long as they think that their elected representatives are responding to the will of the voters and not to the will of the bankers, and the voters send them letters telling them what they want, the bankers send them checks. So you know which envelope they open first and which one they pay attention to. Until Americans realize that that's the system we have and we better change that, then there's not much we can do. But I'm hopeful. Having said all of that, I'm still hopeful because right now the pinch is so tight that many people are waking up and saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? They know that something is wrong, and a certain percentage of those, 3 to 15%, are asking questions with the idea in mind that, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to stand up and be personally responsible and see what I can do to change things. That's all we need, 3 to 15% in that range. And if we can provide reliable information and leadership and strategies and tactics that we've put forth, and if it makes sense to this group of people, they will figure out a way to do it, and it'll be done through Congress. And that's a long road. But you got to start somewhere, and the first step is to create awareness of the problem, and not only just of the problem, but the cause of the problem, which is this artificial thing we created called a banking cartel, but we call it the Federal Reserve System. That has to be abolished. If we don't abolish the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve System will abolish America.
Yeah. No question about it, Ed, and I agree with you 100%. I think we're heading into some real tough economic times, and I think it's almost a certainty that the fake media will tell us that this is the fault of the free market, of capitalism, of too much freedom, of a president who didn't agree with globalism. We're going to hear the propaganda. So this is a strategy question. How can we get around the propaganda megaphone that is the establishment media? How do we make the American people aware that the real source of the economic pain is not the free market, is not rejecting globalism, but it's in fact the monetary system and the crazy government policies that have been implemented?
Well, I think we can get around it simply. I didn't say easily, but simply by telling the truth and proving it, and being very sensible about it, being very careful that our documentation is correct and accurate. Don't exaggerate things like we have a temptation to do, because we got to make this more dramatic than it really is. It's hard to get any more dramatic than it really is right now. So I think if we just tell the truth, as we have been doing, in a very calm way, but stressing nevertheless the importance of it, then the challenge becomes, how do we increase our audience? And that is really it. And that's why the forces on the other side are doing everything possible to deny us any access to media. Taking people that talk as we do, taking them down off of social media. They're shadow banning them. They're taking their videos off of YouTube. So that's all part of the problem. And that has to be solved. And I think it's being solved by building alternative media, alternative channels, competition to YouTube and Vimeo. When Vimeo took me down, I thought, well, Vimeo is this nice little company. They're not going to be concerned about these political things. Bang! So we just have to find new ways, and that's happening. And I think it's good, actually, that it's happening, because it forces us to be more realistic about the battle we're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, Ed. And so one more question. What is next for Ed Griffin? What is next for the Red Pill Expo, for Red Pill University? Where does it all go from here?
Well, we'll be conducting these Red Pill Expos for as long as we can, and I think that'll be a long, long time. It's going to be rough, because we know that our opposition will not like what we're doing, and they'll find ways to make it very difficult for us to do that. We're prepared for that. I used the analogy when I started to promote the expo this year of the battle at Mobile, Alabama, back during the Civil War, when there was a big battle in that bay, and Admiral Farragut was in charge of the fleet on the Union side. Now, this is not a question of Union versus the South or anything like that. It's just a question of strategy and tactics and courage. That's what the thing. And as the Union fleet was moving into the bay, they found out that the bay was loaded with mines, water mines. They called them torpedoes in those days, before our age of torpedoes with propellers on them. They were just water mines. And boom, boom, there went a couple of their big ships right in front of them. Boom, they're sunk. And so all the other ships went into reverse, and started back. What are we going to do? And the tide carried them. They started to bang into each other. It looked like it was going to be a catastrophe. And the admiral of the fleet climbed up one of the masts there, and he looked down around. He yelled down, he said, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." That was a pretty courageous move. But when you look at it, he really didn't have an option. He was either going to go down for sure, with his ships crashing into each other by the current, and anybody wasn't going to accomplish his mission, or he had to risk the sinking of a lot of ships. But he took the risk because that had to be done. That was no choice, really. So I thought that was a good analogy, and so I used that to kind of promote our event here. I told that story, and I said, damn the torpedoes. There are a lot of things we don't know about. There are a lot of risks to do this, so let's go ahead and see how it works out. So that, I think, has got to be our attitude, because if you wait until it's safe, and until there's no question about your success, well, you'll never accomplish anything.
Yeah. Well, amen, Ed. Thank you so much. And you're right. Damn the torpedoes. It was a good strategy. It worked out. Del Bigtree said, I think there was over 1,000 people here. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's been huge. And we've got the people live streaming all over the world. It's been phenomenal. Thank you for everything you've done, Ed, and that you're doing. We'll check up with you as soon as we can. Folks, G. Edward Griffin, the chairman of the Red Pill Expo, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's an honor to be with you, Ed. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, folks, and stay tuned.